Hey guys, welcome to the 19th installment of the Sling Den. And today I've got an American friend of mine who has recently been very successful at a particular tournament. And that is none other than the forever smiling Mr. Sling and Clay, Mr. ECST 2024. And that is Andy Leitem. How are you doing, my friend? You good?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm so happy to have you on. I mean, we've been speaking back and forth sort of like the last year in the Juggernauts and stuff like that. Eventually, my goal is to have all the Juggernauts on. But you've done something very special this year, which we will touch on a little bit later on. But before we get into all that good stuff, let's find out a little bit about you, who you are, where you come from, and yeah, just let people know a little bit more about you.
All right. Let's see where to start. I don't know. Why don't you let me know? You want me to start how I got into slingshots? My first slingshot, that, or like
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can tell you're American. What part of America are you from?
I live in Maine, in southern Maine. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania until I was in my mid-20s, and I needed work. I couldn't find anything around there, so my uncle lived in Maine, and he said, "You can stay with me for a little while, and I'll get you a good job and get you on your feet." And been here 18 years now.
Nice. So I have heard that the closest thing to sort of UK weather is Maine. I'm not sure if that's right. You get a mixed bag of weather over there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And when we're talking about slingshots, if I'm correct, you've not been shooting all your life. It's a fairly recent thing. Is that a fair comment?
That's true. That's true. So, like a lot of people, I had something like a wrist rocket when I was a kid. But the one I had wasn't like a traditional like Daisy wrist rocket or Black Widow or whatever. It was like this one that had like a hard plastic sheath that went over your forearm, and it had like rollers on it. It had tubes. It's kind of like Saunders, like Starship ish. I don't know if you know what that is, but it was something like that. But anyways, it was just a toy, and I played around with it for here and there during the summer when I was a kid. But I didn't, no one to teach me anything. I just was aiming instinctively. I think no anchor point, no nothing, just both eyes open, messing around. And then I put that down for many, many years. And then last year, that would be April of 23, I decided, you know what, I always in the springtime, I get an itch to do some backyard marksmanship, plinking, something with air guns or something of that nature, some kind of backyard friendly marksmanship. And so I started looking up YouTube videos to see what's going on in like the air gun world. And yeah, I saw a video of some guy who was hunting ground squirrels with a slingshot. You might know who I'm talking about. This guy was drawing way out here, both arms extended, and shooting these ground squirrels from 70 yards away. And I thought, holy cow, man, what's going on here? I gotta check this out. So yeah, that was last year. I've been shooting now probably 14 or 15 months. So yeah.
So people are going to need to remember that 14, 15 months, and we will find out why later. But you mentioned, the previous frame, which a lot of people would have had, they would have had the sort of Daisy wrist rocket and stuff, usually like the hollow tube bands and stuff like that. What was your first frame? Obviously, you found something on YouTube, you thought it was exciting. What did you go out and buy yourself as a little treat to get out in your garden and do some plinking first off?
I actually dug it out here. This is an Amazon special from Tim Boca, I think is the brand on Amazon. It was like $18. It's got the spring clips there, flat bands. It came with a couple band sets and some clay ammo, and that's how I got started. I shot that for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I decided I needed something a little better. But
and that's one of those frames. If you go onto YouTube and type in top 5 frames, one of those videos that have like 100,000 views, that'll be number 1 on the charts, right? It's one of those frames. I suppose so many people have bought them, and I did exactly the same thing. I seen Wayne Martin. I went on to Amazon and seen all these things. They had like lasers and guides, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. Now, if I have the knowledge that I have now, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely not cool. So what, you mentioned that you shot that for sort of 2 or 3 weeks. I think, I got the Blood Stopper. I shot that for around 5-6 weeks, and then I went on to the Wasp Unifox. What was the next frame that you kind of went with after that one?
I think I went with the Simple Shot Scout. No, just the Scout X.
Nice.
Or XT. I can't remember now. I can't even remember which one. The one with that didn't have the fiber optic sights. It was the
Right.
large Scout, 100mm Scout. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I know about you. You were preferring the wider frames, and I imagine that might have something to do with it because something very similar happened to me. I was shooting 90 frames and I was struggling a little bit. And then I got the PPMG, which is a wider frame, and I started to have a little bit of success with that. Did you find that you got a little bit more successful when you went to a wider frame?
Yeah, I mean, I understood from like I'm the type of guy who does a bunch of research immediately when I get into a hobby. Like I want to learn everything about it, and so I knew right away that the wider your frame was, the lower your shots would tend to go using the same anchor point, and if you didn't change anything else. And with this, yeah, I think this is like an 80 or an 85 or something. I was shooting like a mile over I was holding like a foot under my target. No matter how high I anchored or whatever, it seemed like it was going high. So that's when I got the 100mm. I still actually was gap shooting a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, and I had the same problem. I was having to gap shoot quite a lot. The Unifox was an 87, and I think the next frame I got after that was a 90. I think it was the Mauser by Sniper Sling. And, I was the same. I was, gap shooting a lot. So, it made sense for me to go to a wider frame. And then I started to feel like, well, I haven't got huge hands. So yes, I'm making adjustments to maybe be a bit more accurate, but there's probably a deeper problem there. And that's where I decided to really kind of pick up a 90 and find out what it was. I mean, this is a while ago now, but I think for the most part, I was probably shooting with a consistent speed bump, which was throwing my shots high, and maybe the 100mm was just helping with that a little bit. But certainly shooting with 100mm, once I sort of refined myself and was able to practice technique a lot more, I started noticing that I was low. So it was almost like that learning curve for me of going to a wider frame and also developing my skills helped me then when I come back down to the 90 to kind of get it spot on. So, after what you've kind of experienced with, a smaller frame, a wider frame, where do you sit now with your fork width?
Well, it depends on what style I'm shooting. It like when I'm going for ultimate accuracy, for me, I shoot long draw flat bands, and I still shoot 100mm because I don't. You might know, like the further you draw back, the width of your bands keeps getting wider and wider and wider. Let me see if I this backwards in the thing. Okay, but when I shoot full butterfly, like, and I wear safety glasses too, so I cannot find a way that I can reference the bands high enough and still be anywhere near my fork tip, be anywhere near the target. So I like 100mm still. I think I've got so much muscle memory with it now that I don't know if it'll ever change. But I've been playing around with high style and only drawing back to about, maybe just back there, something like that, just a little past my face. And I've been able to get away with 90 because, when you only pull here, the bands are much closer together. So I have more room to pick up. So it depends on what I'm shooting, but I'm still a wide frame guy.
Now, something that's quite interesting about you is you're quite a versatile shooter in the sense of, you have picked up and tried quite a few things. I'm very stubborn and kind of take my stance in the opposite direction where I am trying to become the most perfect person at one thing possible. But I think it was one of Mikey's lives that you kind of touched on a particular thing. You were kind of going back and forth, and it's a very, very good and a very, very valid point that the more you try, the more you learn. And just talk a little bit about, the method behind that and what your belief is on, when you try all these different things, how it helps you become a better shooter.
Yeah. So I'm I'm not exactly saying that like experimenting all the time makes you get better quickly, because it really doesn't. It actually, in the short term, I think it slows your progress in a way. You know what I mean? Because the more you frame jump and you try different techniques and all that, in the short run, you're going to be not good at anything. Like when I first started shooting high style like this, like I wasn't that good at it, and I had lost some ability with my normal shooting. So now I'm left in this place where I can't do as good anyways. But then as you work through the process of figuring out what you can do to make your shot go where you want it to, those same things, like whatever way you need to hold your fork, or you need to tilt your head or hold your body, you can translate that over to any other style you're doing and say, okay, now I don't have to do so much trial and error. I already know if I do this, it's going to help my shot go lower or more to the right or whatever. So I just think like it gives you a deeper understanding of how it all works and what causes your shots to go in each direction. So it makes you more well-rounded. But for sure, if I get ready for the next tournament, I'm not going to be jumping around trying 10 different things. Like before the tournament, I shot this frame right here. This is a GZK Striver. I shot that exact same bands, same pouch, same everything for like 2.5 months before the tournament, because that's how you get that last bit of accuracy, is sticking with one. Every last thing is the same. Then you get to know it kind of like the back of your hand, you know.
And a lot of experienced shooters would kind of forget what it was like to begin. And for someone like yourself, and even someone like me that's only been shooting for a couple of years, when everything's fresh in your mind, it's quite easy to remember the hard days. And one thing that you kind of touched on there with experimenting with different things, the one thing that I learned was when I went from 8mm to 9.5s and 10.5s, which I experimented with for a brief period, was obviously I was then using thicker bands. And when I was drawing back, everything was wanting to go so quick because the bands were thicker. There was more velocity in the bands. So I had to really perfect my release a lot more under tension. And that required a bit more skill in terms of the hold, the release. Everything had to be kind of perfect. So when I went down to the 0.5s, when I started shooting 8mm again, it was so simple because I didn't have that pressure of, my pouch wanting to fly past my face because, I'm using thicker bands to fire heavier ammo. And, that was something that I learned from heavier ammo. Now, it wasn't anything in particular. It's just my, my mental and my physical side of me when, doing the technique had to learn under pressure. And then when I eased off a bit and went back down to the lighter bands, it was easier. So, there's a lot of different things. Different styles require different techniques. You were saying about high style there, whether you're shooting semi-butterfly, full butterfly, it does require different things. And it also trains your mind to know, like you said, you fact find, what you're doing wrong and stuff like that. What made you decide on what sort of styles suits you? Because you've been through quite a few styles for a guy that's only been in the hobby for a short period of time. What things about what styles did you like?
Well, let's see. I guess I started out like pretty much most people do with short draw, because one, I heard it was easier, because having at least one variable always the same, at least eliminate one of the many variables. So I started with that, safer and everything. But I only did that for a little over a month or so. And I guess if I'm being honest, the reason I wanted to try long draw was because of the first guy that I watched his video. That guy happens to be Mr. Chuck and Steel. I think you've had him on the show before. You know what I'm talking about. And I think like him and a few other guys I saw on the internet, on YouTube, I thought that just looks really cool. I heard you get a lot of power for low draw weight. It seems more challenging. I'm not saying that short draw is easy by any means, but I had heard, and from my experience, it is a little more challenging to do long draw because there's one more variable to throw in the mix. And I guess I'm the type of guy who kind of likes, I don't know, if I'm already going to be doing something difficult, why not try to master the more difficult of the two? So that's kind of why I decided. I mean, I just thought it looked cool, and I thought if it's more challenging, then it'll be more rewarding to learn it. So I wanted to try it. And it started out with really like getting pre-made bands from Amazon for short draw and for this Amazon special, and they leave them like real long so that you can cut them to length. And so they were already long enough that I could draw like half butterfly with them. And I thought one day, hey, what's the worst that can happen? I'm wearing safety glasses, I'm shooting clay. Let's just see if I can even hit anything if I pull back further like here. And within maybe 20 or 30 tries, I was hitting cans and doing all right. I said, wow, this is cool. I'll keep going with this. And my end goal was to get to full butterfly. From as soon as I started shooting long draw, I thought someday I want to be able to pull all the way back, just for the cool factor for me. I'm being honest.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And talking of shooting clay, you do have a YouTube channel, Slinging Clay. And I remember speaking to you when you first come along, and you were petrified of going live. You really didn't want to do it. You were very unconvinced at your skill level and stuff like that. And you took the plunge, and you've done really, really well. But let's just talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, what that was about, why you wanted to experiment, and we've been speaking for a while, but already in the last sort of 15 minutes we've been speaking, I can see that you're very sort of passionate, you're very intellectual, and you're very precise about what you want to do. So what was it about YouTube that kind of made you want to veer off in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason for the YouTube thing was that after 3-4 months of shooting, I started getting kind of good, and I wanted to, share that fun with somebody. I was having so much fun and learning so much and enjoying it, but I can't even talk to my friends at work about it because they look at me like I'm kind of weird. Like, slingshots, you mean like a wrist rocket? Like you shoot rocks at windows or what? I'm like, no. No, I'm hitting golf balls and stuff, man. So like I couldn't find anybody, and I thought, well, I guess where else am I going to turn but the internet? And I thought like I could go just to like Facebook or whatever, and some people put some videos. At the time though, I thought it just seemed like a bunch of people putting pictures of their frames up. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I would want to meet up with a stranger who all I've seen is their favorite frame in a picture. You want to kind of see a video, see that they seem normal and pretty cool or whatever before you meet up or whatever. So I thought, well, I might as well make a little channel here. Maybe I'll meet somebody in my area that wants to do some shooting. And I thought, well, while I'm at it, why not try to get some views and subscribers? I mean, that's the point of doing YouTube. So let's see where that goes. And I thought, most everyone here is shooting steel most of the time, and I'm still using clay, so that'll be my little niche or my way to stand out. I'll just call it Slinging Clay, and that'll be something cool. I never expected to go anywhere. I was hoping if I met a few cool people, that would be enough.
Now, I don't know whether you're always this happy, but every time I see you, every time you're shooting, you've got a massive smile on your face, and that's what kind of led me. When I was watching your videos, I could just see how much fun you were having, and you were sharing that with your viewers. Are you a type of guy that kind of gets frustrated or stressed about certain things? Because I don't see that in you at all. Hearing how you talk, and how you want to kind of explore the hobby. Talk a little bit about how you've been able to kind of keep calm and always shoot with a big smile on your face.
Well, you said it. I seem like a guy who doesn't get frustrated or whatever. Now, in life in general, I get real frustrated. I get real stressed out. Actually, kind of easy. But shooting slingshots is just like therapy for me, man. It's like the one thing I can count on all the time. That's like pretty much no matter how I'm feeling. If I go out and shoot, I'll forget about my problems for a little while, can concentrate, have fun. I mean, unless I have an absolutely horrible day of shooting. But usually, even on those days, there'll be at least one little window where I'm in the zone and I pull off one really cool shot, even if I totally suck the rest of the time. But yeah, I think it's easy to stay happy when I'm shooting, even if I'm not shooting good. I figure I'm learning, I'm getting better, and it sure beats being at work or you know doing something I don't feel like doing.
And it's so powerful. And for me, every time I finish work, I have a quick 10 minutes after work, and I'm automatically in a better mood. And it's crazy. Like, I put a short out yesterday on my channel of me just hitting a bottle. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, for the outside people that don't know anything about shooting, it's like, why is that fun? It's like, you just won't get it. You're envisioning this hitting that, and you're using a Y-shaped frame and a bit of elastic to do so. And for me, even now, 2 years down the line, it still, blows my mind. And, I'm always striving to be a better shooter. Um, and I think, a lot of people are like-minded. You're not the first person to come on the Sling Den and say how much good it does for you. Some people have said how it's helped them through very difficult times and their mental health and stuff. And it's not just a cliche thing that everyone says. It's not just one or two people that think it. There's something about it. There's something about being outside, putting your mind to something, and letting all your stress and worries go away, having a shoot. So I think, the next thing we're going to talk about is a particular tournament that you've been to. Now I'm hopefully going to my first competition in a couple of months' time. You ventured off to your first competition, which was the East Coast Slingshot Tournament. Now that's quite a big tournament, and I think anybody that's been in the hobby for a while will know what the East Coast Slingshot Tournament is. Now, if I had to give a sort of side to the UK that's very similar, I'd probably say Harrogate, which is it has different sort of disciplines. It has a woods course and stuff. It's not quite the World Championships where it's sort of purely knockdowns and things like that. Like I said, it's different disciplines. It's camping and all that sort of stuff. So it is the biggest sort of competition over in the US. All the big names kind of go there. Tell me a little bit about why you chose that to be your first tournament to enter, and what your expectations were when you left to go to the East Coast Slingshot Tournament.
Okay. So I guess really the main reason why I went to that tournament over any other tournament is because of its location. It just so happens to be like an hour and a half from where my parents and my extended family still lives. So, any tournament you go to in the United States, we're so spread out. You're going to have to travel. But at least if I'm going to travel that far, I get to, do it two things at once. I see all my family. And not to mention, I knew a bunch of my friends were going to ECST. So, like, it was kind of this meant to be kind of thing. Here it is, close to my family. All my friends are going. And I'm excited. I'm practiced up. I gotta go. This. So it was not like it wouldn't have mattered if it was the smallest one or the biggest one. It didn't matter. It was more like just timing, location, and all that together.
And we'll talk a little bit about your expectations on how well you would do in the competition. But what were your expectations of the layout of it, the way that it worked, the gathering of people? Because I'm pretty sure that until you go to a competition, you don't shoot with a whole lot of people. For me, myself, I've shot with Dan and Aaron of Leighton Strods and Catties. I've shot with my mate Lee from work, and my stepson. But that's sort of one or two people at a time. I gather that you've not shot with a whole bunch of people before. So what were your expectations about going to a competition and being in front of a lot of people and, trying to become the best you can be?
Yeah. So I had some idea of what the tournament layout and the way it was going to go, sort of from all the YouTube videos, especially, Zachary Fowler's. Everyone knows who Fowler is, and he's got, big videos from several ECST tournaments, not to mention a bunch of other videos from a bunch of other people. And so I kind of had an idea what was going to happen there. And as far as shooting in front of that many people, I was kind of worried that I was going to be really nervous. I thought it was going to be like my first live stream all over again, shaking and, not being able to load the pouch and not being able to remember my name and all that kind of stuff. But it did turn out to be not like that for me anyways. It was, I think, especially because I had been talking to so many people that were there online, through text for a long time, that I felt, like they were my brothers, my friends, like it was more like a family reunion than like meeting a bunch of strangers and I have to impress them and make sure they like me or like want to fit in. It was like finally get to see all these guys that I've been talking to for a long time. So it was, the joy overrode the nervousness, I guess.
So the expectation of the tournament itself, the format, the layout, the venue itself, and as well as meeting all your friends that you've kind of met, through social media and stuff like that, it is safe to say that it kind of met your expectations.
And beyond, I could not have imagined having that much fun in one weekend. It was like I don't think I barely sat down for 2 days straight. It was like every time I'd go to sit down, someone's like, "Hey, come on, we're gonna go do this cool thing." I'm like, "All right, let's go." Just one thing after another. My only regret was that there wasn't enough time to really hang out with every person because there were so many cool people. You give each one, 15 minutes, half an hour, and next thing you know, the day's over. So
Now,
yeah.
I'm personally a very sort of target driven person. So if I want to do something, I'll set my goal at that. So for the competition that I'm hoping to attend in September, my goal is sort of the halfway measure. So if there's 30 people competing, I'll be very happy with middle of the park. It's my first competition. I've never shot competitively before. I only kind of initially got into shooting because I wanted to explore the hunting scene. However, I have fallen in love with being as precise and as accurate as possible, and I am actually now looking forward to doing something a little bit more competitive. I did particularly want to stay away from competitiveness because I wanted it to be like that zen kind of something that I can just relax with. But I don't think that I'll kind of get carried away with the competitiveness. It'll be more for fun, but I'm also looking to have a little bit of fun competing. What were your expectations when you set out to go to ECST in terms of how well that you would do? I mean, everyone usually goes with the frame of mind of as long as I do as good as I can, then I'll be happy. Did you have a particular number in mind where you wanted to kind of place amongst the other shooters, or did you just want to go have a good time and do the best you could do?
Yeah, I went in there with pretty much no expectations at all. Like I had to stop myself from like spending too much time fantasizing about how things were going to go and trying to plan every moment and try to live it before it actually happened so I'd be prepared or whatever. That I don't think it's useful at all, to do that. And I'm glad I managed to not do that too much. I practiced events that I felt were pretty, like I tried to make my training somewhat similar to what the events were going to be there. And I just went in there thinking, hey, however I do is how I do. I'm here mostly to meet my friends, to meet people, to have fun. And like, I think I'm like this. If I worried about what people were going to think, depending on how I shot that day or that weekend, that would make too much pressure for me. And then I would be let down afterwards. And all this negativity comes from like planning on doing a certain, doing well, and if not, the people are going to be disappointed in you, the people are going to make fun of you, you're going to be, no, all that is not useful at all. You know what I mean? It's, to me, I think it was much more useful to convince myself that no matter how I did, no one cares. you know it's like no one remembers how you did, they remember how they did, and that's about it. Maybe who got first or something, I guess they'll remember that, but you know what I mean. It's that the nervousness in my mind comes from worrying about what people are going to think if you fail, you know.
And I think that's the case for everyone, isn't it? And I think that's a very, very good point, and everyone should kind of take that on board. And it's not to sound, critical of anyone, but no one really cares about you. Do you know? I mean, everyone's going for themselves to have a good time themselves. They're not going to find out how Benji or Andy's doing at the tournament. They're going to find out how good they can shoot. They don't really care about anybody else. And I think as long as you remember that, you'll always have a good time. Now, let's talk a little bit about the sort of disciplines. What sort of, in terms of the competition format, what sort of things did you have to do at ECST?
Okay, so first of all, there's a woods course, which is probably one of the funnest events in my opinion. You walk through this trail or through the woods. I would guess it's about a mile long, something like that. And there's these metal cutouts of animals that would be at all different elevations. Some of them are up in a tree, some are down like below ground level, sort of down in the valley, and anywhere from like super close. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 meters from you, all the way out to about 25 meters, maybe something like that. And so you get one shot at each one, and you can't, like, you don't get a warm-up shot, a feeler shot. You have to judge everything. You get a point if you hit it and nothing if you don't hit it. So that's the woods course. And then you have a speed shoot. You have 10 cans at 10 meters, and you try to knock them down in under a minute. There's you progressively higher points as you knock down more cans. And there's a 25-yard paper shoot. So you get 10 shots at a paper target, 25 yards, and you get various points for closer to the center or whatever. There's one more event where there's a big saw blade, but it's probably 20 feet in the air, some 20, 30 feet in the air, and you shoot it from a different station, ranging from about 20 yards to like maybe 35 yards, something like that. And then there's the knockdowns that takes place indoors, and there's 4 rounds. It's WSA, basically WSA rules. Maybe not quite as strict as all their rules, but mostly this year was their rules.
So, let's not hide the fact anymore. You done very, very well. Talk a little bit about what was going through your mind, and just tell everyone, because I think it's only fair that you tell everyone how well you've done. Let people know, where you come in the competition and what was going through your mind through each stage of the competition.
Yeah, I ended up in first place overall and first place in the knockdown event. And I think second place was something like 14 points behind me, somewhere around there. So yeah, I did amazingly well for a first timer, and for as little experience as I had, and for how many big dogs were there. I did pretty good. Yeah.
And I think it is truly remarkable, really, and it's such a good story because there's a couple of things that I kind of take away from it. And I mean, no criticism when I say this, but I wouldn't expect you to go there and win. Just like I wouldn't expect myself to go to a competition and even come in the top 10. I really wouldn't. But that's because I think of everything like other sort of maybe sports or competitions where usually the guys that's been at it for sort of 10, 15 years are the guys that kind of at their best and kind of win everything. There's not many things out there where you get new people in the hobby that go out and beat these old dogs. Do you know what I mean? When you go to ECST and you've got Chuck and Steele and you've got, Moan and Nathan Masters and Bill and, Tim, who is, you're up against real, high quality shooters. And I'm sorry if I've left any names out there, but there are just a couple that come to mind. So, it's not a case of, you have to shoot for a certain amount of time. It just goes to show that anybody on any given day can go there and do well. But from what you've said before, it sounds like you really did prepare. You made sure that you were covering all bases, making sure you were practicing and training yourself. And that's a good word that you used, is training. You trained to go out there and do, your best, and it seemed to kind of pull through for you. But what was it really like, when you kind of maybe even got home and you kind of sat down and kind of realized exactly what you've accomplished?
I'm still not quite sure I believe it. I'm still kind of expecting that they're going to call me up and say there was some kind of glitch in the computer system and you got to give that trophy back, But it really, for the first 2 weeks, I still had to, pinch myself every time I thought about it. Am I dreaming? Come on now. But, I don't know, like, you didn't even ask this, but something that I wanted to talk about was that most all the events, I felt like I did pretty good. Some people, some of the guys who I got a higher ranking, they did better than me in some of the other individual events. So I was kind of average or pretty good in those, but really why I won is because I did well in the knockdowns. And the knockdowns, by the way, are like super heavily weighted in points compared to the other events. They're like worth half of all the points, pretty much. And this year they did the knockdowns a little differently. So I found out that in the past they were doing Spanish knockdowns, which are, I think, slightly larger diameters for one, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is that you weren't scheduled before. Like, you could just go in there anytime you wanted when there was only a few people indoors and just do your score real quick under very low pressure, and then that was your score. But this year they had everyone do them all pretty much like one right after another, and there was no escaping having 100 people watching you, Fowler's cameras on you, not to mention 10 or so other cell phones running. Like, there's way more pressure. And I think maybe like a lot of the experienced shooters, they could have maybe not been used to that much attention, that many people watching for one. And who knows, like, it only takes the smallest thing for someone to have a bad day and miss just a couple shots, and that's enough to, to make you not do as well as you would have. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. And I wanted to make sure to say this, that I am in no way thinking that I am like a better shooter than all those top 10 or 20 guys that were there. I just so happen, for several different reasons, to shoot better on the day or that weekend than they did. But when it comes to pure skill, I think they're way, way better shooters than me that were there. But, for whatever reason, they didn't perform. And I want to say also that I was in such a good mood from meeting all those people and having so much fun that, like, the nervousness didn't happen. I couldn't, it like nothing could fight against the happiness, you know what I mean, from being around the boys.
And that's very, very humble of you. But I get what you're saying, and maybe the more popular the person, the more cameras that were on them, and sort of all that sort of stuff. But and again, it's very humble of you. But I would absolutely not take anything away from you, and you're very much not the kind of person that thinks that they're better than everyone else because of it. However, the amount of effort that you would have gone through to achieve what you've achieved, and the fact that it's your first competition, you've shot for 14, 15 months, you've gone there, you've kept your composure, and you've gone out and achieved what you've achieved. It's not about thinking that you're better than everyone else, but it's still a massive accomplishment that some people can only ever dream of doing. And I think you know, again, it is very humble of you, but I still wouldn't take away from what you've done. Those people still had every opportunity to go there and win the competition, and they never. You did. So that's not me saying you're better than everyone else. Don't worry about anybody else. It's just me saying I still wouldn't let, the fact that people have past and histories of being X, Y, and Z cloud the achievement that you've accomplished. So very much well done on what you've done. And the reason I didn't touch on the knockdowns is because I was going to come to how that can be very much transferable. Now, we see a lot of people talk about ECST as being the kind of prime, the big bonanza of the US. Now, here in the UK, like I said, we've got Harrogate, and generally the person that wins that, is again, it's a very big accomplishment, and it sounds very much like ECST in terms of the disciplines of what you do. However, there is one other competition, that's the World Championships, the European Championships, where it's indoor, set out exactly how the Olympics would be set out, and well, what we think the Olympics would be set out as, and that is done based off knockdowns, as you mentioned earlier, WSA kind of rules and stuff like that. The fact that you've gone and that was the thing that you come top in, it was what kind of got you your points and all that sort of stuff. For me, in my opinion, you'd be able to transfer that over to those sort of championships, and it'd be very, very interesting to see you compete as something like that. How do you think you would feel? Because again, from what I've seen, I think it works out on a tournament format in terms of points, but then it gets to the point where you're left with the last couple of people, and the final, the shooters are next to each other, and there's a crowd of people watching. It's very intense. Is that something that you think you'd like to do one day? Is go to one of these European or international championships?
I think I will never say never. I would not want to go there by myself or just with one other, just me and my wife, whoever, or something like that, and not know anybody. If I could go with at least a group of my friends, at least a small group of my friends, I would be interested in doing something like that, because you have that camaraderie, you have your buddies, and you're like on a team together trying to do this thing. But I think if I was there by myself, competing one-on-one against all these people, I think that would strip the fun out of it for me. I'm not really a competitive person, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? Like, I did,
Yeah.
I did the competition because, you're there, you might as well. But I think if it would have been just a gathering of people and no trophies and no competition, I would have gone and been just as excited, if not more excited, to go. So, but when it comes to being like, if I could have my buddies there and we were trying to win this thing together, that could be kind of fun. So yeah, I would try that.
Perfect. Now, I think I've covered everything that we wanted to cover, except for one more thing, and that is a question that I ask everyone. That is your setup. So you've mentioned, you're still a wide frame guy, you're a long draw guy. Talk a bit about your equipment, what you're using at the moment, and, was that the same thing that you used when you went out and won the ECST?
Well, so like I said before ECST and at ECST, I shot this frame. Let me get it in camera here. Wrong way. That's a GCK Striver. It's yeah, adjustable forks and ergo pinch grip and all that. And I'll say I was shooting Omega Slings USA latex 0.5 electric white, and I just cut it 20 to 12, 9.5 steel, pit pouch. It's one of those. It's hard with this camera. Okay, pit pouch like that, and I had cut that to 260 millimeters, and with that I was able to draw full butterfly. I shot full butterfly the whole time, and so that was my setup. Now, as soon as I got done with ECST, I was like fiending to shoot some different frames. So I barely have touched this since I got back. You know what I mean? Like, Slingshot guys, we like variety. We like to try different frames and whatnot. So since then, I've been jumping around. I got Ethan over at Tennessee Slang, and let me get in camera again. He made this for me on a trade. I had the Prime 4 can crusher. I have a video on that one, black and red one. But it's a 90 millimeter. And I said, hey, I'll give you that if you make me a 100 millimeter Rougarou, a Chuck and Steel design. So I shot that for probably 2 weeks straight. Same band setup, but different frame. I love that thing. Ethan's an awesome guy, by the way. And he also gave me this 100 millimeter, this camera thing, so hard. 100 millimeter Titan there. So I've been shooting that a little bit. But then in the last few weeks, I've been shooting this DK Xiao fork. I don't know how to say it, but with tubes and high style, because awesome thing at the tournament, Chuck and Steel gave me a little like private lesson on how to load the pouch quicker and, you know, how he shoots high style. And he just gave me just a few little gold nuggets. And then I've been on that. I've been doing that for the last few weeks and having a lot of fun with that. But yeah, a couple other frames here and there. You know, I show you that he gave me a Medusa. He gave me his Medusa. I mean, one of his with the wave system and everything. And I also been playing around with the Wasp Apex. Yeah. So I've been kind of like scratching that itch to try different frames that I didn't want to do that before the tournament for, like I said, 2.5 months or something like that. I didn't touch anything else. So now I'm just like, yeah, kid in the candy store, you know, playing with all different setups. But when I shoot, my band setup is pretty much, I'm not tinkering with that too much. I pretty much shoot 0.5 electric white or Omega Slings, and I'll either cut it 20 to 12 or 22 to 14. And I'll usually cut it about 260, and that puts me so I can pull full butterfly and still have real good longevity. It's not even close to being maxed out. So, yeah.
Nice.
9.5
nice.
Still. Yeah.
that was the question I was going to ask. I'm wondering whether this whole kind of huge kind of enterprise you got going on now with trying out all these different things was because you kind of stuck to one thing for so long before you went. So you kind of answered that question, but you know, now you're kind of indulging yourself with all these other frames. And, you know, I'm very similar. I've kind of found the one band, or there's two particular bands that I use at the moment at the same taper, the same sort of active length. However, I can kind of swap and change frame, which I've done at the moment. So it is now time to move on to some questions. I had quite a few coming for you on a few different formats. So I'm sure you may have seen some of them if you've been on social media as of late. If not, let's get into them.
There'll be a surprise. I've had a very busy, rough week, so it'll be completely no preparation.
Okay, so the first couple that we've got is by a friend of ours, which is D's at Double D Slings. So, one, has he taken down a whale with a slingshot yet? Two, is it true that he once wrapped himself in latex from head to toe to help him become one with the sling? And three, when is he getting matching tattoos with Fowler?
Oh man, I love Deez. Deez is one of the coolest, funniest guys. It was awesome to meet him at the tournament. His sense of humor is very similar to mine in a lot of ways. But now I'm still working on the whale. So I don't know if I should say the reason he's talking about taking a whale with a slingshot is because there's kind of a joke about me being an Eskimo or part Eskimo. So when I was, let's see if I can tell the story. When I was younger, I worked in like a freezer warehouse loading ice cream and frozen goods onto 18-wheelers. One of the ice creams was called Eskimo Pie. And they started calling me Eskimo Pie because my face is a little bit, you know, I could pass for maybe, I'm half Vietnamese, by the way. I'm half half white, half Vietnamese. But anyways, there's and I live in Maine. I got a lot of videos of me shooting in the wintertime, so hence the Eskimo joke is going on. And so no, I've taken a couple of seals, a couple polar bears, still working on the whale, these. Okay. I think that wrapping myself in latex, no, I did not do that yet, but I will try it for ECST 2025.
You'll make a good video.
And there was one more question. I forget what the third question was now.
The matching tattoo with Fowler.
Ah, yes. I don't know if you saw Deez's video on ECST, but he zoomed in slow motion when me and Fowler fist bumped whenever I received the trophy. he's he's like, no
With a
more.
little noise. It was like a little, yeah.
No, I'm not planning on getting a matching tattoo just yet. We'll see. We'll see if he signs me to some kind of deal where I have to get a tattoo like his. We'll see.
So the next one is by Leon. So he wants to know: are you afraid that your wife will outshoot you in your next tournament?
Okay, so let me tell the backstory to this question. So, like, my wife never shot a slingshot at all before ECST, and I had invited her. I said, "No pressure. If you want to, I'll teach you. You can learn, but we got to take safety precautions. But I'll teach you." And she never got around to it. But at the tournament, Ethan Martin from Tennessee Slang in there, he basically grabbed her and me by the hand, and we went out to one of the targets in the wood course, and he had some clay. He had a purple frame that he had made and some pink latex, some pink bands, and we taught my wife to shoot the slingshot in like 20 minutes or something like that. And yeah, she was right into it. She got caught up in seeing all the fun at the tournament, and since then she's come out a few times, and I gotta say, she is kind of a natural.
Nice.
She's doing way better than I did for how many shots she's taken. Of course, she's got the champ kind of coaching her, so that helps a little bit. But she's a natural. I don't think she'll have the obsessive personality that I have to practice enough to win, but you never know. We'll just have to see.
Nice. So the next one we have is by Slingburger. He says he just has to know, does the champ say Omega or Omega? Can't wait. It's going to be a great episode.
It depends on who I'm around. I should have said Omega since I'm talking to you, but when I'm talking to my American friends, I say Omega. I'm a social chameleon.
This is always such a great topic on the Sling Den when we're kind of going over the pond and stuff like that. Omega. I don't know. We all know what we mean anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So do I have? I do. I have one from John Paul Palmucci. I hope I've said that name right. Apologies if not. So he wants to know what frame you won with, and what your favorite bands and taper and ammo is. So obviously you have already answered that. Was there anything you wanted to touch on just in terms of your setup in general? I imagine it's your favorite because you won with it. But is there any other reasons why you like your setup?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you why I chose this one. This is my GZK Striver here. And one thing, it has adjustable forks. So I knew that if I got used to it, but I wanted to change width, I could just move those tips or whatever. One. And two, I found that ergo pin strip, see how much that would fill the palm of the hand. I don't know if I can get a good whoops-a daisy. Okay. So with that, it takes any pressure off of any spot in your hand. Like, I could shoot that literally all day long and not get sore, that was important to me, to be able to practice as much as I wanted to and not feel like sore or whatever. And yeah, that was about it for as far as the frame itself. I've since found other frames that I like and they're comfortable, but like having that unbelievable ergo pinch grip thing going on, like, it helped me a lot. What was the other, my setup? Talk about my setup. Yeah, I will say one thing about, like, I started out shooting 22 to 14 with .5 bands because that's what Chuck and Steele told me he uses. And, it's no secret that he's kind of like a slingshot hero to me, the guy I look up to. I think he's an amazing guy, an amazing shooter. So I just copied him. And I like that setup. It's fast, it's powerful. But I found that if I just stepped it down to 20 to 12, I could practice way longer than I could with 22 to 14. And the more you can practice, the better, more accurate you can be. So I will jump. If I just want power and distance, I'll go with 22 to 14, .5 with full butterfly. But 20 to 12 is more than enough for 10 meter. I got flat trajectory at 10 meters with that setup.
Nice. Very well said. So the next one is by Mr. PH, Mikey Paul Reddick. Are the rumors that you have a Mikey Paul tramp stamp tattoo true?
Yeah, 100% true. I do. I'm not going to show you, but I will admit it. It's been there since day one when I met Mikey.
There we go. He's probably sat there with a bag of Cheetos right now with a huge smile on his face. So
He's
shout
probably,
out Slingshot Tony, aka Mikey Paul Reddick.
yeah, I'm sure he's laughing right now, and there's Cheeto crumbs and dust flying out at his phone.
Yeah. So the next one is by Mark from ATO. Shout out, Mark. What is the best tip you would give someone who just got their first slingshot? Great question.
Ooh, boy, that I should have thought of something to say for that. Well, I guess I feel like there's so much has been said about that, so I don't have to make sure that this person knows everything. But I'll try to say that, like, for me, when I first started out, I used clay and rubber ammo, both of those. And to me, like, that helped me to get over any kind of fear of what was going to happen if I messed up and hit myself in the hand or whatever. I wear safety glasses all the time, and I did then because to me, I felt like this is just a fun little hobby. I don't think it's worth it for me personally to get hurt over it. I mean, lose an eye or whatever. But besides that, I'm saying, like, safer ammo is not as accurate as steel. No one's going to argue that. But with safer ammo, clay or rubber, you get to make sure that the ball is making it past your forks without doing any damage to your new frames. And if you're just starting out and you hit yourself in the hand with steel, you may not be apt to want to keep going. And even if you do, you may get a little bit you might develop target panic or some kind of flinch that you don't want to develop. So in my opinion, it's really useful to spend a few weeks with some safer ammo. It's my opinion.
And that's a very, very good point. That's something that I've never thought about because it's true when you first pick up a frame, you have all sort of nerves, to begin with. And one of the biggest things is, oh my God, am I going to put this ball bearing through my finger? So you take that element away, it probably helps you to relax a little bit more and help you with your practice. That's a very, very good point. Something that I've never kind of thought of myself. The next one's by Paul Weber. And just by the way, when I'm reading these, I've not pre-read these. Usually I write a list down and read them straight off the screen. So I'm hoping there's nothing crazy out there. I don't know what could be crazier than Mr. Mikey Paul Reddick's, but we'll go on to the next one, which is Paul Weber. If you had a secret technique that allowed you to hit a bullseye every time, then would you share it with others or just become a superhero with a slingshot? In the latter, then what would your costume be? What a great question. I like that one. That's outside the box. That's not one that we get too often. I like that. Nice question, Paul. Go ahead.
Well, if I found the secret, I would immediately be making a video and sharing that with everybody. I'm not one to, I'm one who loves to share information about something that I feel like I know a lot about it. And like, it kind of reminds me of something else. Um, so I had kind of been planning on making a tips and tricks or accuracy video for a long time. And I was kind of worried that like maybe I wasn't qualified or whatever, or you know what I mean? I know that that's not a problem, but for me personally, like I have some kind of imposter syndrome. Like I shouldn't be telling people how to do this thing unless I can do it really well. And even now when I think about it, sometimes I'm like, yeah, but I still miss all the time, or whatever. But then I talked to Mark from ATO, and he's like, no, if you have some information, just share it right away. And I definitely have got that in the plans. I plan on making, like an accuracy tips and tricks video. But to answer the question, if I had the secret, that would make me immediately finally say, "Hey, I'm qualified to tell you how to do it because I can do it every single time. Look." So,
And it is a great point. Yeah, go ahead and answer the costume part, and then I'll go on to say what I was going to say.
I would probably have a parka and a dog sled to go along with the Eskimo joke, I guess.
I wasn't going to say anything, but good answer. But just touching on what you were saying there about being qualified to give advice. Now, I have seen some things on Facebook, particularly from some of the older kind of people that's been in the hobby for a while, where they kind of mention that people who are new to hobby give advice and it's bad advice and stuff like that. Now, the way I see it is, if you're sharing something, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to work for that person, but it might work for somebody else. Now, I'm not going to be able to get someone from A to Z, for example. I've only been shooting for just over 2 years. I can't get someone from A to Z. But if I can get someone from A to B, then I've still helped someone. And that's the reason I put my video out. I was in the same boat as you. I didn't really want to put one out because I don't feel like I'm qualified. I've not been shooting long enough. I've not gone to competitions and, taken home trophies, anything like that. However, what I have done is gone from, hardly being able to hit a tin can to being able to sort of get 60, sort of sometimes 70% on a 25 mil, 70, 80% on a 40 mil. And to me, that's a massive improvement just for myself, not against anybody else or, in comparison to other shooters, but from me on a personal level, I have drastically improved. So I'm just going to share what's worked for me. And if that helps somebody out, fantastic. If it doesn't, then there's plenty of other people out there that can give advice. And that's the way that I think is the best way, to look at it is, again, you may not get someone from A to Z, but you can get someone from A to B with just one or two things that might help somebody,
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it's really like a personal, like an issue that I need to figure out or whatever, because it's weird when I watch other people's instructional videos who haven't been doing it a long time or have won a bunch of things or whatever. I don't judge them. I never have thought to myself, who are you to, but for some reason I did fear that before or whatever. So, but I'm definitely working on a video on giving tips and tricks, anyways.
Nice. So the next one is by someone that we've spoken about a couple of times. Shout out Ethan Martin. What was your top 3 favorite moments of ECST?
Okay. Oh, I hadn't thought about that one. Well, definitely, without a doubt, one of the best was whenever Ethan and me taught my wife how to shoot for the first time. That was something special. You know what I mean? We were hooting and hollering and hugging after, and that was a wonderful moment right there. And then I think the other one other awesome moment was, so I walk up to Chuck and Steele when he's warming up for his speed shoot, knock down the 10 cans in under a minute. And I just came up to watch him, and he's like, "Hey, Andy, you want to try it?" And he hands me his frame. You know what I mean? I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to fork hit it." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. Just grab it." And he's like, "Here, let me show you a couple pointers." And this is a guy that I had watched on YouTube for so long. And yeah, we had talked. So I didn't have so much of that, like, I don't know, I wasn't like completely Star Trek or something like that. But it was something cool to go from kind of looking up to somebody and to have them right there, like, giving you a personal lesson, and just being, he's so nice, down to earth guy. I can't say enough good things about him. But so that was a special moment right there. And I say one other, the best moments was, so we were down at the practice range. I don't know, I'll have to explain. Like at ECST, there's this whole range with like all kinds of random targets that people just set up in this big area, and it's just, you just shoot for fun or warm up, or have fun or whatever. So like me and Mikey and Chuckin, and let's see, Tim Henry was down there, and Corey. I'm sorry, I don't remember Corey's last name, but we were there. And then Moan
Corey
Waller.
Kessler.
Yeah, I think that's his last name. Yeah. And so then Moan Waller and his crew were down there, and they said, let's have a little friendly competition. So they had this, like, they call it the ladder of pain. It's like maybe 10 strings with all these tiny little targets on it, like maybe, like 12.5 millimeter targets, like small ones. And like the two teams, as soon as you hit one, you move down to the next rung, and you just shoot at will for each team until you've reached the bottom. Whoever reaches the last target first wins that round. And that right there was one of the funnest moments. It was the first time I ever could be like on a team, actually, in my life. I've never been a team sport guy in my whole life. So in that moment, I felt like me and my buddies are on a team against another team of really cool guys. It wasn't like this really, aggressive thing. It was all fun, but it was exciting. It was, everyone was hollering and having fun, and that was an awesome moment. So yeah.
Nice, nice. Very jealous now. I wish I could have been there. So the next one is by Doug Roll. If you weren't uh, going to practice for a competition, I think that's meant to be if you were going to practice for a competition, at what distances would you practice shooting at?
Okay. Well, I guess, let's say, I don't, I guess it would be different for each competition, but I know that if I was getting ready for ECST again, I would spend a whole lot of time at 10 meters, and I would set, which I did, I set my spinners or my targets up around, well, it's like 1.4 meters. For me, it's around chest, neck height, which made a big difference for me, because before that, I had shot a lot at targets lower to the ground, and my catch box was low to the ground. And especially for a long draw guy, but for anybody, that you want to be dialed into that elevation off the ground at 10 meters, especially if the points are heavily weighted towards the knockdowns, right? That's one.
Sure.
And then I knew there was going to be a lot of like 25 yard, there was going to be 25-yard distance. So I spent some time there dialing in at that distance. And then for the woods course, what I did was I found like a trail through the woods, and I checked to make sure there was no houses around. And I would just go for walks and pick out anything I could see, like, a twig, a pine cone, a mushroom, or anything I could see. And I tried to pick stuff up in the tree, down on, low in a valley, different distances, that kind of thing. You have to practice it by randomly picking targets. So that's what I would say. I mean, if there's any other, if you can like tell ahead of time what the events are going to be, then you can sort of match the same distances. But that's what I would say.
Sure.
Anywhere from 10 to 30 yards.
Nice. So the next one is by Trent Pyle. What's it like to beat Tim Henry?
Well, it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know, man. That's a weird question for me because I just I just went there and did my best, and much to my surprise, I got a higher score. I all it says though is I did better than them on that day, and that was awesome that day. If I would say this over and over again, if we would do the same competition the week after or the week before, the numbers would have been different. But it was cool. It was awesome that one day that I did better than him and all the other guys.
Again, very humble of you. And this this is a great one by Chris Foster. Shout out to Chris, long-time fan of the Sling Den. Big shout out, Chris. Would you rather catapults for hands or elastic for toes? How did you prepare for the comp? How much practice would you do daily? If you had to give up your favorite frame, which one would take its place?
Whew. Okay. So,
So let's
uh,
start. Would you rather catapults as hands? So I'm guessing you've got one frame on this hand and one frame on this hand, or would you rather have latex as toes?
I guess probably a catapult for a hand. I mean, that's mostly what I do with my left hand, anyways. Is hold a catapult, slingshot, whatever you want to call it. I
And
know,
draw
when in
back,
Rome.
hold the pouch out.
So yeah, if I had to choose, I guess I'd make my hand a catapult. And what was the next
And what
one now?
about your practice? How
Okay,
often daily were you practicing?
okay. So like I I pretty much would practice as much as I could, and that's not any different than when the competition's coming or not. Like, I'm kind of an obsessive. I have an obsessive personality, so every spare moment, whatever hobby I'm into, I'm trying to do that hobby. And right now, it's slingshots. But I would say, on average, about 45 minutes to an hour on most weekdays. Like, I get home from work, my wife doesn't get home for about an hour or so. I would just run out there and shoot. Okay. And then on the weekends, depending on what was going on, I may like shoot on and off, accumulate 4 or 5 hours of shooting in a day on the weekends. If, schedule
Nice.
allowed and whatnot. I mean, that's where that came in with the little bit lighter setup and a super comfortable frame. Man, like a few of those days, I had nothing going on, and I must have shot like 3,000, 4,000 rounds in one day. I'd go through like 4 band sets, 5 band sets in a day.
So the other one that he asked was if you had to give up your favorite frame, which one would take its place?
Wow. So I don't even have a favorite frame right now, so I guess I'll just go with if I had to give up the one that I won the tournament with. It's so hard to get in front of this camera here. Okay. If I had to give that one up, I guess it's going to have to be one of these two here. Yeah. So this one that Ethan made me is not only an awesome frame, this 100 millimeter Rougarou. It's an awesome frame. It's one of the few brace grips that's actually comfortable for me, and I shoot it. I shoot it pretty well, and it's kind of like sentimental value to me because my good buddy Ethan made that. So that's one that could take number one spot for me as of right now. He gave me this one in the trade, just threw it in because he said, "Hey, I can't even shoot 100 millimeters, so you want this?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I'll take that too." And I really like this one too, this Titan. So,
Nice.
but I think the Rougarou's got a win for the sentimental value of it. It's got that on top. So
Nice. Nice. So the next one is by Nate Amore. Uh, what's your favorite breakfast cereal and cartoon from when you were a kid? Great question.
Favorite cereal growing up was probably peanut butter Captain Crunch. Yeah, that was. I mean, I like uh, cinnamon toast crunch a lot too, but I probably, if I could only pick one, it'd be the peanut butter Captain Crunch. Cartoon growing up. I really liked that Pinky and the Brain when I was younger, and
Nice.
that, yeah, I like that one, and I like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a lot. So, but it's hard to pick. There was a lot of good cartoons when I was a kid.
How old are you? Were we the same generation? I just turned 34.
I I just turned 43, I think.
Wow, you look young.
Thank you.
There's me saying the same generation. You're almost 10 years older than me.
I'm
So
mature as a teenager, so
there you go. Now it makes sense. The next one's by Luke Stroud. Do you think that it was an advantage being your first tournament? Like there wasn't any pressure to live up to in a previous placing. Now you have to defend your title.
I 100% think it was an advantage for me and my mindset. Like, it was easy to convince myself that no one was even paying attention to how I was shooting at the knockdowns. There, I figured, I convinced myself that there's maybe 100 people behind me, but there's probably a legend right this side and somebody famous on this side. They're watching them. No one's gonna care. No one's expecting me to do well. No one's paying attention, and no one will even notice if I miss every last one. So that helped a lot. And I think maybe that could have been a small part of why some of the more established shooters, they felt maybe that there was more expectations on them. And as far as me, next
But
time I go, like I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few more people paying attention to me next time. I can't lie to myself and say no one's going to pay attention to me again. But I still will probably think that really it doesn't matter. No one who is gonna like look down on me or make fun of me if I don't do well again. And I'll say, see, told you it was just luck. Like, and so I don't know what for sure, but next year I'm pretty much gonna try to have the same mindset. It's just all about fun, and realistically nobody really cares how you do, so there's no point in being all nervous and worried.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. About the kind of pressure sort of thing. But I don't think anyone. I don't know if anyone has already, or I don't know if anyone will in the future go and win the ECST with the amount of experience that you did it with. So you can always hold that, in your back pocket. Um, so the next one we have is by Rex Spurlock Jr. Shout out Rex. Hope you're good. So
Hold on,
out of
Ben.
all the things that went on at ECST, uh, what will you remember as being the one thing that was the coolest thing that happened after when? Oh, sorry, the coolest things that happened other than winning the tournament. So you touched on your top three. So I imagine it may be one of those.
Yeah, you know what, there was so many fun moments. It's pretty hard to narrow it down, but I think one of the coolest things that happened was, like, as soon as I got there, like, almost the entire Juggernaut crew was ready to go to do the woods course, and I hadn't got a chance to warm up yet. And I said, whatever, I don't care. Like, this is the time to go. I want to go with these guys. You know what I mean? There too many to even name, but Mikey, Chuck, and Dee's. Ethan was there. Uh, I can't even. My mind is. I'm drawing a blank. A bunch of the Juggernaut guys. So Jose was taking score. All of my good buddies were going right then. So it felt like I went from reality and got dropped right into this fantasy slingshot world where all these people that I had only ever seen on a screen were right there with me, and we were shooting together in some kind of Slingshot Paradise or something. So that was probably one of the coolest moments. One of them, the many. And
Nice.
Rex was there too, by the way. Rex was with me whenever we both did the woods course with that pack of guys. So
Nice. So the next one's by Andy Moore. And shout out Andy, fellow countryman of myself and a top shooter here in the UK. How did you manage your nerves towards the end of the competition if you knew you were in the running for winning?
okay. So that was part of my strategy too, in a way. Not, I mean, sort of like. So coming up to the knockdowns were done last, and I figured I was doing pretty decent up to that point. Not amazingly good, not bad, but the knockdowns were coming, and that was going to be a big deal. And during the whole thing, I made sure not to pay attention to how anyone else was doing the whole time. Like, I didn't look at the guys beside me when they were shooting. And when I got back to the, waiting, we did it in like rounds, 5 guys at a time in all these rounds. And I didn't ask anybody what your score was, how'd you shoot, how you doing? Like, I didn't want to know that, because to me that could easily get in my head either way. Like, if they were doing way better than me, that would be uh-oh. And if they were doing terribly, I might be like, uh-oh, I know this guy, he shoots really well and he just missed all of them. That might make me, I just didn't want to know. Like, I didn't want to be in the mindset of doing better or worse than anybody else. I wanted to be in the mindset of, let me get up there, have fun, do my best. That's it. That's all.
Nice. So I have got one more. So this one, if I can find it, is by Carlo, who didn't follow the rules. Because as always, I say, if you've got questions to ask, make sure you ask them on the original post and not on one of the pages that I've shared on. And Carlo, being Carlo, asked the question on one of the other pages. So I will ask it. Seems as it's Carlo. Let's ask the question. So it's a two-part question for you. One, is there a big slingshot community in the tundra? And two, did your first frame consist of penguin wishbone? Bonus question, why do they refer to you as crickets?
Oh, okay. All right. I got that. Okay. So the first one, there's not a lot of, it's about the same amount of people in the tundra as in the United States, the rest of the United States. That's about the same amount of people. You have to travel just as far to shoot with somebody. So there's that. My first frame, I should have made it out of a whalebone, but no, it was an Amazon cheapie. And why do they call me crickets? Well, me and some of my friends get in this little chat room. I won't say who's in there, but some of my buddies, we get in a chat room, and like we make some jokes that are not so appropriate here and there. We have a lot of fun. It's a safe space or whatever, and I have a tendency to like say something that's just a little bit past too far. It's just a little too far. And combine that with coincidence, people happen to get busy right whenever I say something really a little bit dark or whatever, and then next thing you know, there's crickets in there. And then if I say something, someone will just put a cricket emoji in there. Yeah, that's me, Mr. Crickets. So
Nice. Nice. Well, that is all the questions done. Well done. Managed to get through them all. And I was actually really surprised at some of those questions, because usually it's kind of the same old stuff, How long have you been doing this? What's your favorite of this? And I love all those questions. We get to find out a lot more about our guests. So please do keep asking those questions. But we had some really, really fun, unconventional ones in there. So shout out to the Sling Den viewers for those questions. They were really, really good. Enjoyed asking those. What I will do, Andy, is I'll put the link to your YouTube channel in the description. But I just want to give the mic over to you and just leave the viewers with a message.
I did not prepare a message, so I'm gonna have to wing this one.
You should have
Maybe
a
it'll be.
script ready. I mean, you're the
I,
champion of the USA right now. You know.
all right, I'll just think of something here for any beginner out there who's thinking about getting into this and they're not sure or they just got started. For one, this is one of the funnest, best hobbies you can possibly do. The people that do this same hobby are all really awesome. You definitely want to get into this. It's a great thing to do. Be safe about it, be careful, but have fun and just stick with it. Just practice all the time and learn all you can, and don't worry if you're missing a lot, because missing is learning. That's for beginners, I guess. And for anybody who is thinking about going into doing a competition or whatever, for one, I think the most useful mindset is really like a fun mindset. If you're focused on your excitement that you're going to go and meet cool people and have a lot of fun, that's going to be a lot better for you as far as your nerves or whatever. And just try to remember that nobody in the end, no one, I swear a couple of days later, no one will remember how you shot unless did unbelievably good or something like that. No one, no one's paying attention or whatever. And if you're thinking about, one more thing, if you're thinking about going to a tournament or a competition and you're like, I don't know, I'm not good enough, get that thought out of your head. It does not matter your skill level. If you're new, you're going to learn a lot of stuff, and if you're in the middle, so is most everyone else. And this, the people who get into this hobby sport are just, it seems to attract the coolest, nicest, best people. So just go and you'll meet so many friends, and that'll be worth the trip. It'll be worth it all. And whatever you score, it doesn't matter. Well, I guess that's
Perfect. That's a very nice message. And, I go into my first competition. That's definitely something I'll take on board. Well, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I know we'll catch up very soon in the chats and stuff like that. But honestly, it's been fantastic speaking to you. Congratulations again on what you've accomplished. It is truly remarkable. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I had a lot of fun, and I'm honored that I got to talk with you. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. Thanks so much, brother.
No problem at all. Catch you soon, buddy. Take care.
All right.
So, guys, there he is, Mr. Andy Leitem. Hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have done, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really does go a long way. I have nothing else to say other than happy shooting. I'll catch you in the next one.